pull it up, so I'm on the hook again to give a message. And Mother only spoke very briefly last night. For those of you who watched the event, it was a 3.5 hour event just about. And maybe in the last 10 minutes, Mother, she gave a gift, right, at the end. She was giving gifts to the leaders. And then at the end of that, she spoke for just a couple of minutes. And this morning, I couldn't remember what it was she talked about. But then on the statewide meeting, Chiyoko and also Sharon, reminded me that Mother said, at the end of this, long but very beautiful performance, Mother said, didn't you meet Father tonight? And that was the theme of the 40-day prayer condition was, let's meet Father. She said, didn't you meet Father tonight? And what did Father say to you? So yeah, it came back. But it's too bad we can't watch it, but hopefully that'll be, if you couldn't watch the event, hopefully it'll be available on Peace TV at some point. And so I was going to give just a short testimony about my first experience of meeting True Father. And then I'm hoping that some of you have experiences you would like to share, either from the celebration last night, or from the 40-day prayer condition. Maybe you had an experience of True Father that you'd like to share. Okay? So I hope some of you have something to share. My first experience of Father was, I'd been in the church for about 3 years, and I was sent to a 21-day workshop in New York, and a couple weeks in, I was given the opportunity to go to Belvedere and see Father speak. He was giving a Sunday service. So I went, and we woke up very early on Sunday morning. We drove to Belvedere. There was, a few hundred people sitting on the floor at Belvedere, and Father got up to speak. And the title of the speech was The Right Path of Abel. But something happened, and Father's microphone was not working. If Father had spoken about the right path of Abel for a couple hours, I probably would have been falling asleep. But his microphone was broken, so he started to talk about the day before, which was Saturday, and he'd gone tuna fishing. And then he went on to explain why tuna are special, why they're the fastest fish, one of the fastest fish in the ocean. They cover the entire 7 seas. They're tasty, and Father explained why they're the most beautiful fish. And then they fixed his microphone, but he continued to speak about his vision for the ocean. And eventually, the speech was included in this book called God's Will in the Ocean, which if you want to borrow it, let me know. But they changed the name of the speech. It was The Right Path of Tuna. Name of it. And Father talked about how he wanted to feed the hungry people of the world by using fish flour. He had the idea to harvest krill, which is this tiny shrimp-like creature. They're very small, but they feed whales. Giant whales eat krill to stay alive. And Father had the idea that, there doesn't have to be hungry people in the world. We can use this to feed people. And I remember that David Rogers used to be a brother who lived here in Raleigh briefly. And after he left here, I think he actually was part of the effort to have this giant fishing boat which went to Antarctica and fished for krill. So these weren't just, Father was a visionary, but he was actually putting his ideas into practice. And he said, when the world is at peace, we won't need military So we'll use aircraft carriers for motherships, and we'll have all this fleet of ships that go out on the ocean for months around the mothership, and that's where they will resupply. And so Father had a lot of ideas. And he also wanted to have bait shops, and he wanted to build boats. And at that point, he'd already started building boats. And some of them were, good-sized fishing boats. And he wanted to supply, he wanted to have a chain of sushi bars, and that, which actually, at one point, True World had over 140 sushi bars, I think, or something like that. and also, fish for the tuna, catch the tuna, sell the tuna, prepare the tuna, and change the diet of America, affect the whole American diet. And many of these things, did come to pass. In fact, I didn't know it at the time, but I've been in church 3 years at this point, and this speech was like a portent of my entire life, that I'd marry a wonderful Japanese woman, and work in a Japanese restaurant, and eventually someday have my own Japanese restaurant, and get my fish supplies from church-owned businesses, and all these things which he talked about came to pass, and I was right in the middle of all of it without knowing it. So it was a really good speech. It was really fun. But I did get in trouble afterwards. When I came back to the workshop, they asked me to give a report, and I said, Father's a visionary, and he's got all these ideas, and how wonderful it was to sit in front of True Father and hear him speak. And Mr. Sudo, after I spoke, Mr. Sudo got up and he said, it's not enough to say Father is a good person or a great person. He's the Messiah. So he kind of let me have it. But what is the Messiah? I think we all grapple with that question. What is the Messiah? What is it like to stand in front of True Father? What hit me was his humanity, his humanness. I can relate with this man. Jack gave a sermon a few weeks ago. Jesus is God was the name of the sermon. And by extension, Father is God. But what does that mean? We're still grappling to understand it. And I think the reality is that the Messiah is human and divine. His qualities of both. And you can emphasize the human or the divine, but Father ultimately had both qualities in him. So, and I'm really impressed with all of you. Your loyalty and love for true parents really inspires and moves me. So now, let's open up. Well, I'll let Tim do that.